Jumbo, boys and girls. Today we will be reading from the children's book, Big Fish, Little Pond. To bring us up to date, Neon meets up with Cheetah on the edge of the crab's pond. Crab has sealed the outlet to the river with rocks to keep Neon all to himself. The little fish sees Cheetah's sadness in her long tear streaks, and Cheetah tells Neon the story of her ancestors. Neon promises to help Cheetah, and Cheetah helps Neon right back by digging a trench in the crab's wall, allowing the little fish to join her flow once again in the river of life. The Prince. When the servant reaches the tower and climbs that spiral staircase to the empty fishbowl, there stands the king, tears dripping down his face. The servant tries to explain, but his words are awash in the language of good, and the king does not understand. And this is when the servant knows it is time for him to go. He is feeling a pull, like the little fish felt, and he misses his family and has been gone so long. He packs up what few belongings he has, and before he treads down that staircase for the final time, tries again to speak with the king. The master's eyes are red and swollen from crying. He is thin, and his hair is wild and unkempt. He peers at the servant through watery eyes and sees the bundle he has tied to his wand that has slung over his shoulder. He will soon be alone. He knows that, but he is powerless to stop it, and holds up his hand against the words that the servant would speak. He knows not the language of good. He knows only the language of sorrow. "You are the prince," he tells the man. "For these 20 years I have held you in chains, and you have served me well. You brought me the most joy in my life in the giggles of the little fish, and then you took them away from me, and now you go as well. Be gone with you then. I have nothing left, not even my son." And with that, Prince Sam leaves his sadness at the bottom of the steps of the tower in the house of the ancients. Going home. At first his footsteps are heavy, but soon the prince is caught up in the light and whistles to the birds and the butterflies on his path home to his wife and baby girl. He has no money for them this time, and doesn't know where the money will come from. At least he has his chickens and the food from his garden, and can sell the eggs and vegetables to buy milk for the baby. He quickens his pace, then begins to jog. His bundle sways at the end of his wand, and he is warmed by the light of good. He is upon the fluff ball before he knows it, and trips, tumbling over and over in the tall grass by the edge of the pond. He hears the sound like the chirp of a bird and looks up directly into tiny amber eyes on a tiny face with tiny little tear streaks running down it. A shadow looms above him, and he raises his head to find the fluff ball's mother, staring down at him with her long white canine teeth glinting in the sun. The prince wriggles back like a snake away from the creature's baby, and Cheetah relaxes, and she realizes the prince means her baby no harm. Then out of the brush bounds another ball of fluff that jumps on the prince and purrs in his ear. He can feel the purr in the back of his throat, and tears sting his eyes for the beauty he cannot comprehend. Cheetah fetches her baby, setting her beside her brother to free them from the smell of man. The prince backs away slowly, knowing he has had a close call. He knows this is a cheetah, but he has never seen one before. He feels around for his pack and his wand without taking his eyes off the scene before him. He can't help but notice how skinny they are, and he worries for them as he gathers his things about him. They are a magnificent sight in the meadow, and he lingers a few moments so he can capture this love in his heart. He feels around in his pack and pulls out a black box which he holds to his ear and talks to the cheetah lady to tell her she must come and feed these cats, for they are starving to death, and he could not bear that. Although she assures him they will fend for themselves, he takes the last bit of meat from his pack and tosses it at the mother's feet, giving away the last of his own nourishment, never knowing that the cheetahs will not eat what they have not killed. But this act is not lost on the tally of good deeds, and the prince is fed enough light to keep his energy up until he reaches his homestead in Salama, Africa. Cheetah and the Bee. Cheetah sniffs at the meat and turns up her nose. It has a stink of death about it, and she looks to the sky to see vultures beginning to circle. Then she sees something spiral from the sky and land right on the tip of her nose. She blinks and looks cross-eyed at a bee clinging to her fur with his little barbed feet. He shakes his tiny head and says, "Wow, that was close." "What's wrong?" asked Cheetah. and the bee looks into her huge amber eyes. "Did you see that black box?" asks the bee, and Cheetah nods while the bee bobs up and down. "The box puts a bad buzz in the air, and when we fly into it, it confuses us. I'm taking water from the water place to cool my hive, but now I don't know what direction that is." As he is telling this, the drop of water he was carrying slips from his grasp and trickles down the cheetah's tear streak right into her mouth. The taste is foul, and she shakes her head, tossing the little bee into the air. Buzz engages his wings and flies in front of the cheetah's nose. "What's that taste?" asks Cheetah, and Buzz tells her. "It comes from the cow pond," he explains. "It is the only water we have that is close enough for our hives." He leaves her for a moment and shows off his aerobatics. Buzz is practicing to be a stunt bee in the hive circus. "Come, I will show you now." Buzz leads Cheetah and her two little babies to a huge pond. Two humans are driving cows through the pond of stink. It smells like the meat Prince Sam had thrown at her feet, and Cheetah turns up her nose. These are not the cows she knows from her travels. For eons, the Maasai people in their robes of bright red and blue have driven their scrawny herds across the land, but these cows are big and beautiful and stink of death. "This is poison," says Cheetah. "The new cows have bad bugs because they were not born here. You should not be taking this water for your hives." "But we have no choice," says Buzz. "There is no water close enough, and if we move our hives to the good water, there are many humans with black boxes to confuse us. Many of us are dead because we can't get home." Cheetah looks at the scene before her and thinks of the human with the black box. Remembering his caring, he spoke to the cheetah lady. "Maybe Prince Sam and his cheetah lady can help us both." And without another word, Buzz settles on the tip of Cheetah's nose, and her two little fluff bundles follow along on the same journey to find Prince Sam. And that's all we have time for today, boys and girls. Please join us next time when Prince Sam makes it home at long last to Salama and his beautiful family. Neon continues her adventure with the stingray, and Cheetah and Buzz make their way to Prince Sam to enlist his help. The cheetah lady brings the island queen to Sam's homestead, and all are touched by the light of good. You have been listening to Big Fish, Little Pond, a truly magical experience for good.